I installed solar panels, and my neighbor complained they reflected light into his bedroom. One day, I came home to find them smashed, thousands in damage. When I asked if he knew anything, he said, maybe the sun finally fought back. He had no idea I'd installed a backup camera that recorded. Let me tell you how one man's petty grudge turned into a full-on war that ended with lawyers, cops, and a life ruined. And I don't regret any of it. So yeah, Pete, my neighbor, guy hates everything. Hates kids, hates dogs, hates mailmen. I should have seen the red flags when he yelled at a 10-year-old for riding his bike too fast down the street. The day I installed the panels, I was proud. I saved for 2 years to afford them. It was the first major investment I'd made in my house. I live alone. I don't splurge much. But this was going to pay for itself. Pete showed up at my door within 72 hours. You're blinding me every morning, he said. I told him the panels were angled properly, approved by the HOA, and certified by the city. He didn't care. He wanted them gone. A week later, I got a letter from the HOA. Reflection complaints, it said. Wonder who sent it. I responded with photos, angles, the whole setup. Even offered to slightly adjust the tilt, just to be nice. But that wasn't good enough for Pete. He started doing little things. Sprinkling birdseed near my driveway, so pigeons would hang around. Leaving his garbage bins right in front of my side gate. Then came the loud, passive-aggressive phone calls from his patio. Some people don't care how they affect their neighbors. It was stupid, but it added up. I started dreading going home. Then the night my panels were smashed, man, that pushed it over the edge. Seeing that damage was like getting punched in the gut. I couldn't breathe. I crouched down, touched the broken glass, and I just remember feeling helpless. $16,000 gone in minutes. No weaknesses. No proof, or so I thought. That backup camera I installed saved everything. Pete walked across my driveway in full view of the lens. He didn't even rush. He looked relaxed, casual, like it was just another Tuesday evening. I replayed that moment, where his face came into view at least 10 times. I wanted to walk back over to his house and shove my laptop in his face, but I didn't. I saved the footage, copied it to a USB, copied that USB to 3 more, sent one to my email, another to a friend out of town. This wasn't going to be a quick win. I was going to bury him. I didn't go to the cops the next day. I went to work like normal. Said nothing. Just kept quiet and waited. Pete had no clue I had the footage. That was my advantage. That Friday, I sent an anonymous tip to the HOA with a printout of the smashed panels and a blurry still of Pete walking back across my driveway. I made it look like a neighbor had seen him. The HOA doesn't mess around when it comes to property damage, especially if it brings attention to the neighborhood. They sent him a notice 2 days later. I watched from my window as he tore it open and started pacing in his driveway, furious. Now that he was rattled, I kicked the real plan into gear. I booked a consultation with a lawyer that Monday, told him everything, showed him the video. He just leaned back and said, "This is open and shut. Arizona's laws are clear. If you vandalize someone's property, especially in a premeditated way, it's a felony." The footage showed him holding the crowbar, walking onto my property, and doing the damage. All time-stamped, all backed up. The lawyer asked if I wanted to press criminal charges. I said yes, but not yet, because here's where it got interesting. I found out Pete was a real estate agent. Not a good one, but it was his job. And if a felony charge showed up, his license would be suspended, possibly revoked. That was his entire career. So I started collecting more dirt. I filed a police report quietly, didn't mention the footage yet, just stated the damage. I also sent a complaint to the Arizona Department of Real Estate. Said Pete had been harassing neighbors and was under investigation for property damage. I didn't lie. I just didn't attach the video. Not yet. The department opened a case. I found this out because 2 weeks later, a guy in a blazer came to the neighborhood and started taking photos of Pete's house from the street. I was mowing my lawn when I saw him. He nodded and said, "Just doing some follow-up." Pete must have felt the pressure because that night, he came back to my door. He didn't knock, he pounded. I opened it just enough to keep the chain on. "You better stop whatever you're doing," he growled. "You think I don't know this is you?" I said, calm as anything, "I don't know what you're talking about, Pete." He stepped back, breathing hard. "You're messing with the wrong person." And then he spit. Not at me, but on the ground near my door. That was it. The next morning, I handed the video to the cops. I gave a full statement. They opened a case, called it criminal mischief and felony property destruction. Then I sent the same video to the real estate board. No note, just the footage and the incident report. 2 days later, Pete got served. I watched from behind my blinds as 2 uniformed officers knocked on his door and put him in cuffs. His face went pale. The whole neighborhood saw it. He tried yelling something about being set up, but nobody cared. His car sat in the driveway for weeks after that. But this story doesn't end there. Because after Pete got out on bail, things got worse. He came back, and he didn't come back quietly. He started parking his truck half on my lawn. He left trash in my yard. He even poured something on my rose bushes. They died 2 days later. So I installed more cameras. Front yard, backyard, see the gata, all hidden. And I waited. One night at 2:14 a.m., Pete snuck over and slashed the tires on my truck. I had him on video. Again, he didn't learn. He really thought he could outplay me. So I called the cops. Again, when they showed up with a warrant for vandalism, Pete actually tried to run. They tackled him on his own lawn. His mom, who'd flown in from New Mexico to help with his legal issues, was standing outside when it happened. She screamed at the officers, screaming that I was harassing her son. They didn't care. They hauled him off. That's when the real spiral started. Pete lost his license. He got fired from his brokerage. His face showed up in the community Facebook group with the caption, "Neighbor from Hell." His house went into pre-foreclosure 3 months later. And the best part? The judge denied his request to get the video thrown out. But I wasn't done yet. I wanted him to feel everything I felt. Humiliation, loss, helplessness. So I filed a civil lawsuit. And that's where things really blew up. Filing the civil suit was simple. I had a lawyer draw it up the same week Pete got hauled off the second time. We sued for the cost of the panels, labor, emotional distress, legal fees, and lost wages from the time I had to take off work to deal with it all. My lawyer told me we could easily ask for around $30,000. I said, let's ask for $50,000. The court date was set for 2 months out. Pete didn't have a lawyer at first. I guess after losing his license and job, he couldn't afford one. But then something weird happened. He suddenly got real quiet. No more trash in the yard. No more slashed tires. No more spit on my steps. Just silence. I figured maybe his mom finally talked some sense into him. But I was wrong. Because 3 weeks before the hearing, I got a letter in the mail from a law office across town. Pete had gotten a public attorney, and he was filing a counterclaim. His claim? That I deliberately installed reflective solar panels with the intent to harass and provoke him. That I had caused him mental distress, loss of sleep, and professional harm. His lawyer accused me of starting the whole mess. At first, I was stunned. Then I laughed, because I still had everything. Every email, every HOA notice, every police report, every video, every screenshot of his truck parked halfway on my lawn. I even had a neighbor who was willing to testify that Pete used to call my dog a mutant rat. But things got serious quick. His lawyer filed a request to delay the court date because Pete claimed he needed to gather more evidence. My lawyer warned me, he's trying to run out the clock and get you to settle. Don't budge. So I didn't. Instead, I got even more prepared. I called the solar company and asked for a statement explaining how the panels worked, how they were angled, and how reflection was minimal and compliant with city code. They sent over a document the size of a short novel. I pulled the footage of every incident, organized by date and timestamp. And then I found my ace in the hole. Turns out, Pete had done this before. In his old neighborhood. Different city, same story. I found a post on a local message board with his name in it. Peter Malloy ruined our block. Someone had posted photos of a smashed bird feeder, slashed tires, even a security light bashed in. I reached out to the original poster. She was still furious, even though it had been almost 4 years. I asked if she'd be willing to submit a letter for my case. She said yes. She also sent me the name of the cop who handled the complaint. I sent that to my lawyer. When we finally got to court, Pete walked in looking like he hadn't slept in weeks. He was wearing the same frayed khakis he used to mow his lawn in. His mom came with him. She kept rubbing his back like he was a kid at a dentist appointment. The judge looked over both filings, then asked to see the video evidence. We started with the first one, the solar panel smashing. The room went dead silent as Pete's face came into view. Even he looked like he forgot how obvious it was. Then we showed the tire slashing, the trash dumping, the spit. Pete's lawyer didn't say much after that, just kind of leaned back and stopped making eye contact with anyone. Then came the best part. My lawyer submitted the complaint from Pete's former neighbor, complete with police report. The judge took one look at it and said, "This seems to show a pattern of behavior." Pete stood up suddenly and said, "This is all a setup. He angled those panels on purpose." The judge shut him down hard. "Sit down, Mr. Malloy. You're not helping yourself." He sat. His face was bright red. His hands were shaking. The judge didn't rule that day. Said he'd issue a decision in writing within a week. But the damage was done. As we walked out of the courtroom, Pete's mom glared at me and muttered, "You ruined my son's life." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "No, he did that himself." But the revenge wasn't done. Because a few days later, I found out something even I didn't expect. Pete's public tantrum in court? Someone filmed it. A woman sitting 2 rows behind me posted it to TikTok. The clip went viral. It was titled, "Man Destroys Neighbor's Solar Panels, Gets Wrecked in Court." Within 72 hours, it had over 1.2 million views. And the internet? They destroyed him. People found his old realtor profile, left reviews, hundreds of them. "Stay away from this guy. He destroys property. He slashed tires in Arizona. Watch your car." Someone even found a Yelp page for his old agency and tanked the rating. He tried getting it taken down, but it was too late. Pete had become a meme, and I hadn't even lifted a finger. The world was doing the work for me now. 3 weeks after the trial, the judge mailed his decision. I won. The ruling was clear. Pete was fully responsible for the destruction of my solar panels, the tire slashing, and harassment. His counterclaim was thrown out as baseless and retaliatory. The judge awarded me $47,820 in damages. Pete had 60 days to pay or risk wage garnishment, asset seizure, or liens placed on his property. I framed the letter and hung it in my hallway. Not even kidding. But what happened after that was worse than I imagined for Pete. He didn't have the money. That was obvious. So the court placed a lien on his home. I got a letter from the county 6 weeks later. They were moving to begin seizure proceedings. That meant if he didn't pay, his house could be auctioned. I didn't think it would go that far, but it did. His mom left sometime around then. She packed her car and drove off one morning, didn't even say goodbye. I heard later from another neighbor, she went back to New Mexico and told someone at a diner, "My son's not right in the head." 2 months later, Pete's house had a big orange sign posted to the front door, "Foreclosure Notice." The neighbors started talking. That same week, a repo truck came and towed his F-150 from the driveway. He stood outside watching it happen, just smoking a cigarette like he was watching his life burn down. The truck wasn't even fully out of the neighborhood when Pete stormed back inside and slammed the front door so hard his porch light fell off. But I wasn't even the one who delivered the final blow. That came from someone else. Remember the TikTok that went viral? It kept getting shared. A woman saw it, someone who used to work with Pete at his old brokerage. She came forward and told her story in the comments. She said Pete had harassed her at work for months, called her names, messed with her desk, tried to get her fired when she rejected him. She filed an HR complaint back then. Nothing happened. But now, with the TikTok as fuel, she posted screenshots of his emails. Creepy, weird stuff. Then a local news station picked up the story. Their headline? Arizona man destroys neighbor's solar panels. Gets exposed for pattern of harassment. They even showed a still shot of the video in the segment. Pete's face, frozen mid-step, crowbar in hand. After that story aired, he vanished. Just disappeared. The house sat empty for weeks. Then one day a U-Haul showed up. No one saw Pete, just a guy in a baseball cap moving boxes with the blinds pulled tight. He left behind a ton of junk in the garage. HOA ended up having to send a cleanup crew. A couple months later, the house went up for auction. Sold at a loss. I heard through someone who knew a city clerk that Pete moved to California. Don't know where. Don't care. But here's what I do know. 3 weeks ago, I got a certified check in the mail for the exact judgment amount. $47,820. No note, just the check. I guess he had to liquidate everything to pay me. That same day, I got an email from the solar company that installed my panels. The manager had seen the news story and offered to reinstall everything for free. A full top-of-the-line setup worth over $20,000, no charge. Said it was great PR for them and karma for the crap you went through. I cried a little when I read that. Not gonna lie, they came out the next week and installed the new setup. Even upgraded my energy storage with a battery unit. My power bill? Basically zero now. But that wasn't the only ending. A week after the new panels were installed, I got a knock on my door. It was Paul, another neighbor down the street. Quiet guy, works in HVAC. He held out an envelope. I chipped in with a few folks on the street. He said, "We figured after everything you went through, you deserve this." Inside was a gift card for $500 to Home Depot, signed by 6 of my neighbors. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Not because I ruined Pete, not because I got paid, but because I stood up for myself, and the truth crushed every lie he told. And if Pete ever reads this, and I hope he does, I'll say this. You tried to bury me. You forgot I had the sun on my side.